Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for requesting this private session that Tami and I are getting ready to do. And we are going to be focusing on this session on anxiety. So, just like in my other private sessions, we're going to talk about the issue, we're going to tap through it together. And I want all of you to do this along with us too, so that you can tell us how it goes for you as well. So, Tami, tell me a little bit about how anxiety comes up for you present day.
The most common trigger that I will have for anxiety is if I feel like I have made a mistake or failed, or I'm not as good, maybe as another speaker when I go out and speak. So it's like that comparison when I fail and fall short.
Okay. All right.
Is
Is
that good? Do you need it more specific?
I mean, if you have more specific, EFT favors specificity. So if there's like
Oh,
really specific
it's
things, then that's helpful.
it's comparison. It's
Okay.
definitely comparison. Am I as good as someone else?
Okay. Is there any kind of like imposterism there?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have like anything coming up in the near future that kind of triggers that for you that you're worried about, like not showing up as good as or that kind of thing?
Oh, there will be as soon as it gets close, because, I speak. That's what I do for a living.
Okay.
And
So
I don't
when you
really
go
have
to
any,
speak, does it come up for you?
yeah, it's not that I don't have anxiety about speaking, but for example, if there's someone else I know that has done this before me and they were super duper good. So it's
Okay.
whether or not measuring up to expectations. So the more high pressure the speaking is, or the more I perceive it as being a lot of expectations, maybe it's a bigger group or a really high power type, and then the more the anxiety.
So,
If
for
there's,
instance, like if you were doing a TED Talk, you'd be comparing yourself to people before you who have done
yeah,
TED
yeah,
Talks
yeah,
that
yeah.
had, 20 million views or whatever, and
Yes,
wondering how you're going to live up to that.
yes.
Right. What kind of things does your inner critic say to you?
My inner critic says things like, you're not good enough. You didn't work hard enough. You could have prepared more. You don't know what you're doing. Things like that.
Hmm. Okay. Where do you feel it in your body when you get anxious?
Probably in my breath.
Okay. What does your breath do? I mean, I can make some assumptions here, but it's better if you tell me.
Well, sometimes, it almost when the thought comes and I don't even know the thought comes, but that feeling you get when you go down a roller coaster or and your stomach kind of drops a little bit and then sort of catching your breath. Kind of feels like that.
Okay. Almost like you've just gotten like startled or had like a big like kind of moment
Yeah.
or
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. How long has this been happening for you in this way?
Um Almost 30 years.
Okay. Is there a place where it started that you know of or
Do you mean the precipitating factor?
yeah, like was there like a first time that it was like this is when I first noticed myself?
Oh, um, well, it was teaching when I was a teacher. So I
Okay.
taught high school for 10 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can basically remember the day going into that high school classroom on the first day of the job and it was fine, but when I left, my mind was like, you can't do it, you're not good enough, and then my family had to quit for me. So yeah, that was
You went for one day and then you quit?
yeah.
Okay. It must have been really extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
When you
It
think
was.
about that memory, how activated do you get? Like if we're using that 0 to 10 scale.
Um, I've been living with it for so long, the memory probably still even a 5 or a 6.
Hmm.
There's that little catch, of songs will cause it to happen. A song, that song, The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Mm-hmm.
That was playing on my way in to that particular school. And when I hear it, it's still triggering. Yes.
It gets
Yes. And I used to love the song, but now it's like, oh, I hate that song.
yes, I remember growing up to my parents playing the Kingston Trio records at our house, and yeah. Oh
Is
my
that those are triggering things for you or?
no, I have different memories.
Oh,
It's always interesting what's connected to something for
oh,
one
yeah.
another.
I
That's
get you.
all. So we can definitely tap on the more like here and now anxiety that you have, but honestly, I'd go back to that. Like if you were my client and I was working with you, we'd be going back there and working on that because that is definitely a root memory that has not been neutralized yet.
Okay. You
So
are my guide.
are you open to going back
I
to
am.
that day and tapping?
I am.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. I think that's just far more transformative. And for those of you who are like watching and tapping along, obviously you didn't live this same day that Tami lived through, and you don't have the same thing, but you probably have some other bothersome memory. And I always trust that people that are watching these are really good at connecting dots and figuring out like how to transpose this into their life. So see what you can transpose into a bothersome memory of your own, and we'll see what we can do with what Tammy's feeling about it.
Sounds
So when you
great.
think about that day 30 years ago, you're still activated at like a 5 or a 6. Um, what are some of the feelings that you had on that day?
Panic. Um, yeah. Anger.
What were you angry about?
I think because the reason I was having that feeling was because I had had these two teachers during student teaching tell me that I didn't belong, that I wasn't good enough. And so that, of course, came flooding back.
Mm, all right.
You didn't know what you were in for, did you?
No, I mean, I'm like in my head, I automatically go to like when I'm working with somebody in like a program time because
Right.
I'm like, oh, there's like so much to go into here. So I have to figure out like what can I pull out and like make meaningful for you in
Yeah, and
like
just
10
like
minutes
10
time.
minutes.
So obviously we're not getting to the bottom of all of it today, Tammy, but I
No,
think
we're
we can
not.
provide some relief here. So yeah, so there are all these other people that are involved that said things to you that never should have been said. Um, and then were there any parts of that day that were particularly bad, or was it mostly just what was happening in your head about the day?
No, that's the crazy thing, as you know, about a lot of anxiety is it's a lot of there wasn't anything bad that happened in the environment. No, but my mind said otherwise.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's just dive in and see what we can do. And is there so it was 30 years ago. Were you married? Did you have kids at that time? What was going on in your life?
I was married. I had two children, and no, three by the time I had Michael. They were all under the age of 5. Yeah.
You had a lot going on.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
All
see. Let's
right.
find some compassion and resolution for younger Tammy and bring her present here.
Sounds wonderful.
We're going to start on the side of your hand. And would you still say, like, when you think about that, is that about a 5 or a 6 for you? I just want to make sure we have a good rating to start with.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So am I doing what you do?
Yep, you are.
Okay.
If you were thinking about this day as like a movie, would you give the movie a title? And if so, what would you give it? The day
Mm.
that
The
something.
first thing that came to mind was the suckiest day of my life.
Here we go.
Probably not true, but that's what came to mind.
That's how it feels. It's okay.
Yeah.
Even though I lived through the suckiest day of my life,
Even though I lived through the suckiest day of my life,
and it still bothers me today,
and it still bothers me today,
30 years later,
30 years later,
I want to love, accept, and forgive myself.
I want to love, accept, and forgive myself.
Even though I know that day is at the root of so many of my anxious thoughts.
Even though I know that day is at the root of so many of my anxious thoughts,
And it is robbing me of my power in the present moment.
it is robbing me of my power in the present moment.
I'm open to the idea that I might be able to let it go.
I'm open to the idea that I might be able to let it go.
And even though I still get so anxious
And even though I still get so anxious
and compare myself to others
and compare myself to others
and let my inner critic beat me up,
and let my inner critic beat me up,
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
We're going to go to the top of the head now.
Okay.
All of this anxiety whenever I make a mistake.
All of this anxiety whenever I make a mistake.
Because I don't think I'm good enough.
Because I don't think I'm good enough.
Or as good as others.
Or as good as others.
And I had so much anxiety the day I started that teaching job.
And I had so much anxiety the day I started that teaching job.
Because those two teachers that I did student teaching with,
because the two teachers I did student teaching with,
they told me I didn't belong.
Told me I didn't belong.
Did they tell you anything else you remember?
Just that I wasn't good enough.
They had the nerve to tell me I wasn't good enough.
They had the nerve to tell me I wasn't good enough.
And some part of me believed them.
And some part of me believed them.
And that job just felt like too much.
And that job just felt like too much.
It felt like if I stayed, they would figure me out.
It felt like if I stayed, they would figure me out.
They would be on to me.
They would be on to me.
So it felt safer to leave before they figured it out.
So it felt safer to leave before they figured it out.
The truth is, I had a pretty busy life back then.
Truth is, I had a pretty busy life back then.
I was trying to raise 3 small kids of my own.
I was trying to raise 3 small kids of my own.
And start a new job.
And start a new job.
And I'm open to the idea.
I'm open to the idea.
That maybe I was just doing the best I knew how to do.
Maybe I was just doing the best I knew how to do.
Because hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Hindsight's always 20/20, right?
And I can play Monday quarterback and think of things I might have done differently.
I can play Monday quarterback and think of things I might have done differently.
But I did what I knew how to do.
I did what I knew how to do.
I did what my brain and body knew would keep me safe.
I did what my brain and body knew would keep me safe.
And I can't fault myself for that.
And I can't fault myself for that.
And I can't go back and change it.
And I can't go back and change it.
All this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
That I still feel today.
That I still feel today.
The way it pulses through my body.
The way it pulses through my body.
Like riding a roller coaster.
Riding a roller coaster.
Just feeling like I'm not going to be good enough.
Just feeling like I'm not going to be good enough.
And underneath the sadness.
And underneath the sadness.
A lot of anger.
And a lot of anger.
There's a part of me that's really pissed off about what people told me.
There's a part of me that's really pissed off about what people told me.
There's a part of me that's really angry about these ideas that got implanted in my subconscious mind.
There's a part of me that's really angry that these ideas got planted in my subconscious mind.
Because it's not fair.
It's not fair.
And deep down, I know that I am enough.
And deep down, I know that I am enough.
I know that I am love.
I know that I am love.
I know that I have everything I need inside of me.
I know that I have everything I need inside of me.
So I'm clearing this trauma down to a cellular level.
So I'm clearing this trauma down to a cellular level.
I know that it's been trying to protect me.
I know it's been trying to protect me.
But I don't need that kind of protection anymore.
But I don't need that kind of protection anymore.
And I'm ready to go shine my light in the world without this unnecessary anxiety.
I'm ready to go shine my light in the world without this unnecessary anxiety.
We're going to do some stuff I didn't talk about in the podcast. So just follow along with me, side of the fingers.
Okay.
With love.
With love.
Acceptance.
Acceptance.
Tolerance.
tolerance,
skip to your pinky, and understanding.
and understanding.
You go to the back of your hand between your ring finger and your pinky. This is called the 9-gamut point. I now forgive, I now forgive, I now forgive.
I now forgive, I now forgive, I now forgive.
And I call my power back into my body.
And I call my power back into my body.
I am whole, complete, and powerful.
I am whole, complete, and powerful.
Now we're going to do something with our eyes now. I'm just going to kind of walk you through it. So if you can, keep tapping on the back of your hand. If it's too much, you can stop. But what we're going to do is we're going to take your eyes up as if you're looking to the ceiling, and you're going to roll them in a circle clockwise, as if you're hitting every hand on the clock until you're back up to the top again. And then you're going to roll them counterclockwise one time, like so from the 12 hand back through 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, now I'm going to get you to just hum a few seconds of happy birthday. Then I'm going to have you count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And then hum again. And then you can take a deep breath. We're just getting the left and the right side of the brain working. Okay? Take a nice deep breath and let it out. And now the floor is yours. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what came up. Tell me what you thought, all the things.
I thought it was amazing that you were able to capture so many emotions and thoughts that have been so real for such a long time. And it's been a long time since I've spoken them out loud, allowed myself to feel them. So I don't know how I feel right now.
That's all right. It's like peeling an onion. You get a little bit of a layer, you figure it out, you raise the consciousness and awareness, and lather, rinse, repeat.
It is. I do feel like it felt good to get some of those things, to say them and to say that I was going to claim my power back.
Yeah. So usually when we think about a bothersome memory, there's almost like this zzz, kind of a charge to it. So that's kind of what that 5 or 6 was before, when you thought about that day and kind of the way it still affects you now. So where does that charge lie now on that scale when you think about that day?
I don't know. Maybe a 3 or a 4.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's a number.
It's
It's hard too. It's kind of like we were talking about on the show. It's not as tangible as something that's like right here, right now, but it's the kind of thing where the next time that you go to do something that would normally trigger those emotions that are very similar to the things you experienced on that day that you both, started and quit that job, you might see you're showing up a little differently.
I'm thinking, I think the next time that I'll be next Wednesday. Not a huge.
Cool.
Not a huge.
I'm curious, and I want to check back with you. I'm going to make a note because I'm going to email you and be like, "How'd it go?"
Well, because it's actually a group that I spoke in person for in April, and I have a low blood pressure where I have a syncopal thing that can happen, and it happened while I was speaking. And so it was embarrassing. It was, I had to leave the stage. It was the very end, but that could cause me to feel less than good enough when I'm doing a webinar for them next Wednesday. So we'll stay in touch. I'll let you know.
What is it that happens with your blood pressure?
It drops. My blood pressure is naturally low, but there are many things that can cause it, but it drops, and it just feels like all the blood is being drained out of my body. It's never happened before when I've been speaking, but it did. And so I told them, don't call 911, because that's happened before. Gotcha. And I have to have salt and
I live on salt. I get it.
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. Well, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and doing this with me. And for all of you that are tapping along, I would love it. I always love receiving emails. If you tapped on something bothersome in your own life, shoot me an email. Let me know where you started, where you finished, what happened for you. Theresa at theresalearlevine.com. Tami, would you like to hear from people?
Oh, I'd love to hear from people. TamiWest.com, Tami West, WEST. Yeah, would love to. Thank you this has been amazing. I appreciated it a lot.
Thank you all for tapping along with us.